All right. Whenever you're ready.
All right. Okay. So today we're going to be making buttermilk biscuits. Normally when I make biscuits, I use my sourdough starter, but I'm not going to presume that any of you have gone through the work of getting a sourdough starter. So buttermilk biscuits are they use different ingredients. Basically what the sourdough starter does is just bind all of the batter together because it's a very you start with a floury, buttery mixture that's very dry, so you need a liquid to bind it together. All right, so the first thing I've done this already, but yeah, is to preheat the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. I know, you can do the conversion on your own, or I can do it if you want me to, but I'm aware of it as 425 degrees Fahrenheit. So I have done that, and we're going to measure out our ingredients. It starts with flour. The recipe calls for some cake flour, but I do not have that, so I'm just going to use all-purpose. I believe it's like a finer grain, and it might have a little leavener in it, but I'm using a lot of baking powder, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay. Got a chat. All right. Well, that's very in theme. A dog named Biscuit. So I'm going to measure out 335 grams all-purpose flour, and then I'm going to measure out 75 more grams, which would be cake flour if you have it. But it genuinely doesn't matter that much. The different types of flour yield very subtle differences in texture, but you don't really like all-purpose flour. It's called that for a reason. It works for most things. So all right, 335 grams. All right. And then I'm gonna tare the scale, which is just making it read 0 again. You ever take a chemistry class or have taken it, you'll get very used to scales. Or if you live not in the United States, which none of you do, so. $75 more grams.
So in the meantime, Mira, I'm gonna ask Rafael, have you baked anything more since last week?
No, Nick. I didn't bake something this week.
Maybe you're gonna bake something this week?
Yeah, I might, yeah. I'm going to think what I'm going to bake this time.
Wow. So do you socialize at all these days with COVID? How is life there with you guys?
I live in such a little town that it has, I would believe, maybe roughly 90 inhabitants, and if we take in account that a lot are Swiss, people coming from the Netherlands and other countries, maybe we are 50, 60 people.
Wow. Wow.
No,
okay,
not
yeah,
that
you
much.
can interrupt at any moment, but
Okay, so the next part is unique to flaky baked goods like scones, pie dough, and in this case, biscuits. And that's to say American biscuits. So like the flaky stuff that you'd have with like fried chicken or whatever. It's the same as a British scone, but we like to pretend it's not. So this technique is, I just got this butter out of the fridge, not because I'm lazy, but because it had to be in the fridge, because this technique is chopping cold butter into the flour. And So I'm going to slice it, and then I'm going to add the rest of the dry ingredients, which is salt and baking powder. It's like 34 grams baking powder because it's 10 grams baking soda and 4 grams baking powder. But like I said last week, you can substitute baking powder for baking soda in a 3-to-1 conversion, or baking soda for baking powder in a 1-to-3 conversion. So the recipe called for 10 grams baking powder, so I'm going to use 30 grams. The recipe called for 10 grams baking soda, so I'm going to use 30 grams baking powder because I don't have baking soda. I can get it, but I don't have it. So I'm going to measure out 34 grams, and then I'm going to chop the butter, and just so it's in small pieces that are easier to handle when it's in the mixture, because we're gonna want a like really, not quite homogeneous, but you want the butter to be in like pea-sized pieces inside of the flour, and all of the flour is gonna take on sort of a yellow tint because you're just really gonna rub the butter into that. And there's a tool that you can use for this, which is called a pastry blender, and it's like a handheld thing which is like multiple knives attached to it. It's not that sharp, but like you basically just mash it in there with that thing. I'm going to use a fork and my hands because I don't have a pastry blender right now, but you basically just want to get it in there. So we're going to do that. And also salt, 6 grams.
You might want to use less because it's sea salt, but
That is not a real thing.
no.
No, salt and sea salt and table salt is not different. It's just better quality salt. It's not saltier. Table salt is cut with I think.
And I believe one is natural and the other is man-made or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think they're both cultivated in some way. Sea salt might be like skimmed along the ocean, but they're both cultivated. I don't think they're naturally occurring because they have to manufacture it in some way. I believe table salt is cut with like anti-clumping agent, which is why there's a lot of viral videos that do fear-mongering about food, and some of them will show you that like natural salt versus chemical salt, which is nonsense because it's all chemical. But the thing that it shows you is if you pour table salt in water, then it'll be cloudy. And if it's cloudy, that means it's chemical and dangerous. But that's actually the thing that they put in there so that it doesn't all clump together and that it remains like powder, like how salt is, like sand. That's not really related. It's just something I know. So now I'm going to continue slicing the butter. Normally, I would dice it if I had a pastry blender, but I do not have one. So I'm going to slice it thinly so it's easier for me to work into the flour mixture.
Yeah, we misplaced that one. I don't know where we don't know where it is.
I'm not being.
You are not.
I'm not begging anybody here. I'm just
self-disclosing. You are not self-disclosing.
What?
Don't worry, I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
Just doing what you're doing. I was saying that you are not disclosing that we misplaced it.
Yeah, well, you don't have, I mean, you did, but you don't have to.
Right.
I wasn't, because I also don't have baking soda, and that's not because we misplaced it, it's just because we don't have baking soda. Because I really hold that it's important to be adaptable and to, like, one of the ideals of baking is that you get an intuitive sense of what you can substitute for other things, because you're not always going to have everything on hand. And it really helps me to like remember that, like, unless you're doing like really fancy French baking that really requires that you have everything like perfect, most things can be made with whatever you have on hand in different quantities. Like heavy cream you can substitute whole milk and butter because it's just a richer, fattier milk thing. Like, it needs to still be liquid, but the fat content is what you're getting by using heavy cream. And I actually do have buttermilk, but if I didn't have buttermilk, then I would substitute whole milk and white vinegar, because it just gets you the same idea. And when substituting, you just have to be aware of the fat content and of the liquid content. The liquid content more so than the fat content, because fat is more for flavor. For some things, it's important for texture, but it's really the most important for flavor. And liquid is really important, because if your baked good has a different liquid content than the recipe calls for, it might not come together at all. Or it might just be slop, or it'll be really dried out, and that can happen. But when I took baking classes as a kid, one of the main things that my teacher told me was that cooking is an art and baking is a science. And that is true to an extent, that you can't mess around with baking too much, because it is a chemical reaction that allows things to rise. But it also is important not to get too anxious about it, because genuinely people have been baking since the beginning of time. Bread is one of the first things humans learned how to make when we became an agricultural society. So it's not worth sweating over. I get people coming to me all the time of how do I start baking bread, and just so nervous about it. And I understand that, because I was that originally, but sometimes it's more important to feel it. And if you fail, then you fail, but there's really it's not as hard as people think it is. And yeah.
I did create with meet an English friend, and what happened is we didn't have milk, so what we did was for crepes, something like that. And in England, I think they have the milk is in a glass, or the juice. So what happened is she put apple juice in it, and then she didn't tell us. And I said, "Oh, that doesn't taste that bad." And she said to us, "Oh, I made a little mistake. I put apple juice in it, and we didn't smell the difference."
And that's important, because she knew that it was liquid. In that scenario, I might have done a little melted butter and water, but the apple juice thing sounds pretty good also, because it's just crepes are pretty delicate, and the flavor profile of it is not too intense. So adding a bit of apple is not too much of a problem. And also apple juice is mostly water and sugar, so it's not really going to change. But yeah, that's one of the most important things. When I first was learning how to cook, it was, I always would look up recipes, and I would get stressed if I would order recipes specifically, order groceries specifically to make a recipe, and we would never really use that stuff again, because it was specially ordered for that specific recipe. But learning how to cook with the things that you have on hand is really nice. And just looking specifically for recipes and include the things that you have, or just winging it, I guess. It's nice, and it feels like a different set of skills. It feels like you actually know what you're doing, instead of just listening to somebody who's telling you things. There's a difference between following directions and really feeling capable. And I'm still chasing that, but it is what I'm working towards. So this is basically what you want. I've just been using my hands, so it's a little clumped, but most of these clumps are not pure butter. They're butter and flour mixed together. So it's mostly yellow. It's got all one color. And I'll check at the bottom to see if there's any flour that I didn't incorporate. But no, it looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm gonna do is mix in the buttermilk. So here I have buttermilk, and it is here it is, right here. So it calls for 1.5 cups, which I'll see what it is in milliliters, because this has both. So yeah, I'll do that. Trying to get it level so I can see.
What was your biggest mistake in cooking? I did a bunch of them when I began at baking and cooking. Once I made a bread, it was so hard as a cinder block.
I tried to make fried bread once. and it was so soft and moist that
you cut. Can you repeat what you said, Mira?
I tried to make rye bread once. I have this book of like bread baking, and it's mostly been good, so I like trusted it. But it was so like, the dough was so soft and moist that it was like coming apart in my hands. It was more like a paste than a dough. And I was like, this must be what it is, because I followed the recipe and he said not to overmix and not to add too much flour. So I was just sort of like got this paste on my hands, and then I like tried to form it into a dough. Like I got water in my hands to try to get it not to stick, and then I put it in, and it was like a hard shell with like mush on the inside even after like an hour. So that wasn't great. I'll try making it again, like knowing what I know and like trusting my instincts, because I was like, this is too soft. I can't even knead this, because I was just pulling it apart like taffy. Like it wasn't even, normally when you're bread baking, you're like actually kneading it. And some are really soft, but you can still knead them. Like there's not that much of a difference. So yeah, I'm gonna add the buttermilk. It appears to be about 375 milliliters of buttermilk. That's 1.5 cups in our stupid system. So here.
But I think that isn't the biggest time I messed up. Was I was confused with the centiliters and deciliters. So what happens? I think it was a half liter of milk, but it was only a glass, so it was 1 a.m. So, oh dear God, what have I done?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember when I made that bread hard as a cinder block. I thought to myself, what if I drop it from the first floor? Will it break?
Well, that's how you learn.
It didn't break. Like a cinder block would.
Well, if you ever need a weapon, you know how to make it.
But with the flour, if I feel it that it's too soft, even if the recipe says that's the quantity you have to put the flours, and sometimes I put some more to have that consistency or consistency I was looking for.
Yeah. Some like breads have a variance in like the dough, whether it's tacky, or soft, which is like it can still be sticky like to the touch. Like this dough I'm actually going to need, even though it's extremely sticky, but cover the surface, because if I don't, I'll basically be icing the countertop, because it's not going to come off if I don't add flour. So I just really like the tactile part of baking, just like putting my hands in it, especially something with yeast, because it feels alive, and it actually is. It's one of those, yeah.
It's microbes or what it is. Or is it a mushroom? I don't know what's making that grow. It's something in the yeast, the living.
Yeah, well, the yeast itself is a living organism, but I'm not sure necessarily what its like classification is in terms of taxonomy. But I know it's like, I know what it does. Mm-hmm. I sat through enough of AP biology to know what it does, but not enough to remember what it is. I know it's yeast.
By the way, guys, in United States, they do this stuff called advanced placement science or advanced placement history or whatever. That's what she's talking about, AP.
Yeah, advanced placement. It's basically like a college level course that you take in high school. And it's basically a course that is it's in theory, it's organized around a test at the end of the year. And we have tests at the end of the year in every class, but it's a specific test that's not administered by the school. It's administered by this company called the College Board. And they have a monopoly on standardized testing. They control the ISEE, which is a test to get into private high schools. They control the SAT, the PSAT, all of it, the ACT. They're really, they have us. And APs are a test that you take at the end of an AP course. It's essentially just an advanced course. It's like college level stuff. And you have to take a test at the end of it. And it's normally 4 hours long. So, but this past year with coronavirus, it was 40 minutes long. So that was fun for me. I loved that. That was my favorite thing about having to be in quarantine, not having to sit through 16 hours of testing, because I was taking 4 APs this past year. I took chemistry, calculus AB, which is just the first calculus, AP US history, so US history, and English lit. And at my school, everyone has to take English lit when they're a junior. And I just finished being a junior, so I took it. And yeah, it's not fun for most people unless you really care about US history and chemistry or whatever. But a really good teacher will still teach it to you like the way they would teach any other subjects. It's not like year-long test prep, even though for some people it is, because you can register for the test without taking a class. And actually the chemistry class I took wasn't formally allowed to call itself AP Chemistry, because you're only allowed, there's a bureaucracy to it, like you're only allowed to call it AP Chemistry if you have an intro to chemistry class, and they didn't have it, or at least they didn't have it at my school. AP Bio is allowed to call it Bio because all freshmen, 9th grade, which is the first year of high school, I don't know, they're all different in every, it was 3 years ago for me, have to take a biology class. So yeah, now the biscuit dough is done and you know something useless. So
Mira, what consistency is that? Because you keep adding flour. Like what exactly are you doing?
Well, I'm kneading it.
I know, but like, how does it feel in your hands? Is it soft? Is it like meat?
It's soft. It's very soft and sticky. It's okay. Like, yeah, it's very soft and sticky.
It's not very elastic, right? It's no.
You don't have to knead it for that long. The reason that you knead bread is to develop the gluten inside of the dough. So the longer, this said only to knead for 1 or 2 minutes. So it's just to incorporate it and to make it a cohesive dough that holds together instead of being, again, a paste in the bowl. Like it has to hold together. That's basically what I'm looking for. Not that much. It doesn't change that much in terms of consistency, just sort of on the outside. My intent is not really to add flour. It's just to sort of make it like easy to handle in some sort of way. So I was doing that. So yeah, the reason that you need bread is to develop the gluten, which is like protein networks inside of the flour, and you mash them together and they sort of attach to each other and form a network, and that makes the bread elastic. And yeah, gluten's a very hot button issue in like, I think the entire world, but it's really just protein, I'm pretty sure. It's just a network that makes things elastic, and there's bread doughs that are much more elastic than this, but this isn't bread. But it's still somewhat held together. So what I'm doing right now, I could use a rolling pin, but I don't want to, so I'm not. I'm using my hands just to spread it out in a somewhat uniform layer. And then you're hearing about a lot of things I don't have, but I choose to define that as resourceful baking instead of just, I don't know, a less diplomatic way of saying it. So I am going to try, I do have a rolling pin though. My whole point in bringing that up is that I don't have cookie cutters. So in this scenario, you can use cookie cutters, but you can also use a glass. So I'm gonna use a glass. I'm gonna get some flour on the rim here, just around it, and then sort of punch out holes in the dough, and that's gonna be the biscuits. So I have baking sheets, and on top of it, I have a silicone cookie sheet. You can use parchment paper, but I don't really like cutting out parchment paper, and this is just mostly pretty easy. You just have to clean it after the usage. So I'm going to punch out some holes, and then we'll have our biscuits. This yields about 12 to 15. It really depends. So once I punch these out, there's going to be a lot of like, I mean, I can just show you, but there's going to be a lot of leftover dough, and I'm going to put that back together and roll it out again until I can't anymore. And then the leftover, I'm probably just going to mash it into like a ball. Like this part, actually, I don't normally do it, but it makes them more uniform, like a more similar size and shape. When if I were just to do it by eyeballing it, then it would not be as uniform. Like this is very pretty. So yeah, I'm just gonna do that.
Yeah, do you let it rise afterwards, or you just put it in the stove? Is it any rising period?
There's no yeast in this.
Oh, wow, okay. Oh, I thought, got it.
No, it's not yeasted. I was just talking about yeast for no reason. I thought you wanted that from me. This has baking powder in it, is the leavener.
Got it, yeah.
If it had yeast in it, you would have seen me combine yeast with, the jury's still out on whether or not it has to be warm water or like warm milk. A lot of recipes nowadays, like I learned it with warm water the first few times I made bread. I made sure to make sure it was warm. But a lot of people say that you don't have to. So like, it's like, here's what I mean, is like, there's so many superstitions around baking and the idea that it's a science and whatever. But it's like, it's not that much of a science. Like if you want to be really intricate and precise with it, you can, but it's not going to be bad. Like it's still going to have the same materials in it, and it's mostly going to be the same texture. Again, like don't apply this to everything. There are some things that are very temperamental, and anyone will tell you what things are temperamental, because most people are very proud of themselves for being able to make a dish that's infamous for being temperamental. Like anyone who can make macarons, you're going to hear about it. So, yeah, I have not tried to, so you're not hearing about it from me.
We let the French handle those.
Yeah.
They do it well. The macarons, yeah.
Oh, they're pretty expensive to buy.
Yeah,
If you buy
well,
them from the
it's hard
bakery.
to make them, but better than paying every time.
It's almond flour and egg whites, and the egg whites have to be like room temperature, and the almonds, like, I'm pretty sure they have to be blanched and really finely ground. I don't think it's like that hard, but it's hard to do like very well. I'm gonna say something else, but I don't remember.
You could try it.
I could. I would have to get almonds. I mean, I have almonds, but I would have to blanch them, and then blanching is basically like boiling them for a while and then putting them into cold water to like cut off the boiling process. Because if you boil something and then take it out, it still is cooking because it's still hot and it takes a while to cool down. So blanching really like cuts off the cooking process right as you take it out of the water and put it into the cold water. And I think it's a pain, so I don't normally do things that require me to blanch almonds. I have a lot of egg whites left over though, so, because I made a lot of custard. It was my mother's birthday pretty recently, and I made her profiteroles, which require 2 different custards. Because
When was it?
She made profiterole. Do you know what a profiterole is? It's basically puff pastry filled with custard.
It's not puff pastry, that's a different thing.
It's what?
Puff pastry is a different thing.
Why don't you describe it? Because I'm talking nonsense.
It's called a cream puff, which is why Mom's getting confused. But puff pastry is a different thing. It's like, normally people buy it. But yeah, it's a cream puff. Like, I learned how to make them in the cooking class I was talking about, and they were billed to me as, I'm gonna butcher this because I don't know French, gruyere gougeres. I purposely said that in my American accent because I'm not gonna try and fail. So they're like, those have cheese in them and they're a savory version. But if you make them with a little bit of sugar and omit the cheese, then they can be sweet. And they're these eggy puffs that, because they got a lot of eggs in them, that come out of the oven like mostly hollow with the shell of pastry. And because they're hollow, you can fill them with things. And if you want to, you can just add whipped cream, or you can go through a whole ordeal of making pastry cream, which is a custard. You can thicken it. It starts with a roux, which is like flour, butter, and water. and you thicken it with egg yolks, which is why it's a custard. You mix the egg yolks together, and then you heat the other stuff in the saucepan, and then you mix a little bit of the hot mixture with the eggs. You want it to be warm at that point, because when you're cooking with eggs and like making a custard, you have to be very aware of the fact that eggs do not take very much heat to scramble, and the texture that you're looking for is not like big clumps of scrambled eggs in your custard. You're looking for a thicker, milky mixture. So you have to be careful when you're adding the heat. So you add a little bit of the warm mixture to the eggs to make sure that they're warm, and then you add it to the saucepan and continue to cook until it's really thick. So pastry cream is like a pudding-like mixture, but it's even thicker than that. It's just very thick, and it's able to be piped, and it's pretty good. I added some vanilla and some vanilla beans from the pod, fully scraped it out of the pod. And then I piped it, and the other custard was ice cream. I have an ice cream maker, and it's also custard based. I believe there is a different way to make ice cream. I have seen some because I spend a lot of my free time browsing recipes, and so I have seen it. Yeah, profiterole has an E at the end.
Has it what?
It has an E at the end.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay, wow. Okay, profiterole.
No problem. So yeah.
They have an E on the end.
I'm not bragging, I'm just talking about it. Yeah, so the custard, like, cream, it starts with heavy cream and milk. You heat it up in a saucepan, and then you do the same egg yolk, putting it in, cooking it over the thing, and then you put it in this thing that I keep frozen, and it basically like churns it. It's like a frozen container that churns the cream around in it so that it freezes and it's still soft. It's like soft serve ice cream if you ever had that. And then I put it in a jar and I freeze it, and then it's basically ice cream. It's very eggy ice cream, but I don't know. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I forgot that you also make your ice cream, correct? So anyway, extraordinary.
Yes, I do.
I recommend you guys try it because it's really yummy. Okay, so Mira, you preheated.
So I did make this before, but it's not very intensive. It's an egg wash. It's just basically I beat an egg with a tablespoon of milk, just like a spoonful of milk. I didn't want to make another one because an egg, like, you measure it as like 1 egg, 2 eggs, but there's a lot of stuff in there. Like, it's kind of a big amount of stuff. And the egg wash is just put in a thin layer over the biscuit so that it has a nice brown top when it's done baking. So I already made a batch of these because to spoil the movie magic. So I already made some egg wash, and it's not good for that long. So I want it to be good. And I used my fingers, but I'm gonna use this. It's a brush. So yeah, I'm gonna be just brushing the tops of these.
Did you make the profiteroles a long time ago?
No, on July 8th.
Yeah, that's my birthday.
Oh, that's happy birthday with a lot.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your birthday?
It's the 10th of May.
May. 10 of
The
May.
10th.
So you're a Taurus?
Yep. That,
Mira has a lot of Taurus in her chart, right, Mira?
That's not true. I have 1 Taurus placement.
Oh, you did? Okay. Oh.
Wait, why are you putting me on blast for this?
I don't know. Didn't you say you had? Oh,
It's a respectable interest of mine.
oh yeah. What?
But yeah, I have 1 Taurus placement. It's a big one, but it's not a lot of Taurus. I have a lot of Virgo. Yeah.
but I'm going to go somewhere with my parents and my sister because of COVID, I wasn't able to do something for my birthday. So we agreed we will go maybe in August somewhere when all the borders, or it will be easier. But how it looks like in Europe, COVID cases are rising again. We had 600 cases in one day in France again.
Yeah, well, we're not exactly killing it either, so I can relate to you on that. My birthday is sort of coming up, not for that long, about like 2 months, but I don't believe that we'll be anywhere by then.
Oh, so you want to share it, or it's a?
What?
I don't want to put you on the spot, so you can share the month at least as a.
It's September 16th.
Okay. Just because we all said it, so I didn't know what you're doing.
Well, yeah, why would, I'm not being coy about it, it's just nobody asked me. So like,
I'm asking you.
if I want to be like, my birthday is this time, like I'm not.
It's September 16th.
Yeah.
But if I remember, I'm going to wish you happy birthday.
All right, thank you.
That's sweet.
A happy belated birthday for you as well. So what I'm doing right now, just so I'm not going to be mysterious because this is a baking class, I'm sprinkling the top with coarse salt. Some people call it kosher salt, but it's basically just big rocks of salt. And I'm doing it for texture and for taste. Yes, there's salt inside of them. I like salt, so I'm adding some more on the top. The texture part is also nice.
That's for a really good salty experience.
Yep. It's not too much, but like.
But not going wild with salt. I mean, this is not.
Speaking of salt, Mom, do you want me to show the?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you put them in, and then you can do the product.
So that's going to be in for 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, well we can chat and see it because we have some time, but you can show also the final product.
I can show you that. I was talking about the pickles in the other fridge, but I can do that.
What were you show? Okay, whatever you want to do.
Wanted me to show. It doesn't matter.
Whatever.
Now that I brought it up, I will.
You what? Oh.
Yeah, so that's what they look like. But I'm gonna get something else.
What? I can't hear what you're saying, Mira. So Justin, she was trying to do what you're suggesting, but I think Mira has her own. Oh yeah, that's her pickles. Mira made pickles.
I love them.
And I have to tell you quite something. She ended up making like what, Mira?
We had 6 pounds of cucumbers because we're growing cucumbers in our backyard. And we are overproducing. Like if I spent my whole life, every waking moment eating cucumbers, I would still not finish them for a long time. So I pickled them because I like pickles a lot more than I like cucumbers. And if I spent every waking moment eating cucumbers, I would get very sick of cucumbers. So yeah, pickles.
Pickles for the win.
By the way, what are you growing? Are you guys farming also?
Yeah, well, my dad planted 100 tomato plants. So a lot of them.
We have 6 plants and we don't know what to do with them. Mira,
if you want to take a look, I'm showing you.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, show the.
Give me a second, I will.
No, Mira.
What?
Show the scones. What did you do?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the tomatoes. I was showing the scones.
Okay, show
and their biscuits. This is in Britain.
Yeah, biscuits. Okay.
What I'm going to show
the biscuits. Okay. Awesome.
This.
Yeah.
I have to turn on the flash on my phone.
Rafael is outside looking
From here.
Oh my God! Yeah.
More here, more. And more over there, and it's the same on the other side, and we have a greenhouse with all of them too. There are other more tomatoes over here.
I'm assuming, Rafael, that he's selling them, right?
I don't know what my father is going to do. Tomatoes.
Oh, wow.
So if you look at these, the top is brown and shiny because of the egg wash.
Nice.
So that's why we put it on. I'll show you the texture on the inside because if I did it right, then it's gonna be nice and flaky.
My father likes them.
That's the inside.
Wow, nice.
Buttery, flaky, pretty good. So yeah.
Oh, show them the tomatoes that we have.
Okay, I will.
You hear me?
Yeah,
now
I hear
because
you.
I did
I
a,
hear you now.
because I
Yeah, I can hear
did
you.
a little mistake. I took my computer, but it's the Wi-Fi router, so I was cut out.
I heard you a bit about tomatoes up to the greenhouse, and then you disappeared.
What I said is that we have more tomatoes in the
Yeah, look,
greenhouse.
these are all tomatoes. Mira, speak so your screen shows.
Tomatoes.
Yeah.
Zucchini. This is a very unusual time for us because we normally have an insane amount of zucchini, but we just have a little bit right now. So that's wild. Tons of, I should make a tart with this. Do we have any if we have go-tos, I'm gonna make a tart with it. So yeah, tomatoes. This is what I'm talking about resourceful stuff, like seeing what we have and using it. Here's a tiny pepper. I think this is a spicy one. So yeah, this is what's going on here. Not in a competition. Oh yeah, I missed this. It was too good to be true. Here's a giant zucchini.
Yeah.
My grandfather had one. It was, I think, 4 kilos heavy and was that big.
Right, but they're not tasty when they get so big.
No, it tasted
You
awful.
feed the pigs, that's okay, but we don't have pigs.
But it tasted awful. And sometimes we had pumpkins. So one, it was 30 kilos heavy, but it wasn't that awful the taste wasn't that awful actually.
Oh, wow. That's
If
so
you,
I mean, ours, what happened is the flesh goes more on the outside and inside are just seeds. So it's not that, oh, Mira, did you take it out already?
No, these are also.
Oh.
a pre-production one.
Yeah, so I really told Mira that she should sort of skip college and just sell, like, let's bake and.
I'm right back. I'm going to take a picture of the greenhouse if you want.
Yes. Yeah, that would be lovely.
This is why I don't like parking.
Oh, why?
It's a huge pain. It's hard to get perfect. In fact, I'm going to trim it with scissors. Where are the scissors? Oh, okay. I'll find them. Yep. Scissors. So I'm going to cut. Cool. Yeah, the reason I brought up the pickles is because we were talking about salt. And these are refrigerator pickles. They're not quite as fermented as store-bought pickles. And they are cured with salt. So there's a crazy amount of salt in them. Because I'm actually, I think my father is purchasing a crock so I can make more traditional pickles. But at the moment, because it was sort of a pressing matter, what with all of the rotting cucumbers that we had on hand. Not quite rotting, but it's
well, not rotting. They would have rotted if we didn't do it.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like they are perishable and they would have rotted pretty quickly. Yeah. I think I'm gonna pawn some of this off on my friends because we don't seem to be eating them.
Oh, I'm gonna eat them. What are you talking about? I thought they're not done. Because I didn't know when it's done, so I can eat them.
I'm back.
So you should eat them. They're done.
Okay, then I'm gonna eat it. But you can also give to your friends if you want.
Yeah, I'm probably going to. My friend really likes salt.
Who likes
But,
salt?
Yeah.
that's more, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah,
Oh, wow.
that's
It's like,
love to you.
wow. Why did he do that? You don't know why he planted so many tomato plants? I'm sure he's gonna sell it.
Maybe. Maybe. Male pickles. Justin, I have a question. Did you receive the meringue with overnight shipping? I remember that one.
Oh God, this is
Like if I were to
Asking
make
the
like
question.
straight up meringues, like the traditional ones where you like whip them with some sort of preservative, I want to say, something to dry them out, and then bake them to dry them out fully. I think you could ship those. Like it would have to be express or something, but they're already like hard when they come out, so it's like not going to be that different in terms of texture. There are some cookies that you can ship long distances. I looked it up because my friends are older than me, and so prior to this whole mess with coronavirus, I had anticipated that they were going to be like moving, at least like one of them across the country, the other one like across the state vertically, San Francisco, you know, California. And so I was like thinking about what cookies can survive the shipping process. And it seems to be like bars and like things that are already dry. So that's my expertise on the subject, but I don't know. We can try it.
I think the customs might not like it as.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's
Yeah.
maybe, that's the only little issue. In otherwise, a perfect plan.
Well, cookies are not the most perishable things.
Right.
There are far more perishable things,
Yeah,
like anything with fruit. No go.
yeah.
Oh my God, true. I mean, we can have a reality show among the four of us once Justin actually can talk, because right now he's on the phone.
Would be fun.
Reality show.
Because he comes with his own jokes at sometimes. So,
Yeah.
so this is funny.
Yeah, it could be a funny headline: 4 guys arrested for shipping meringue.
Well, good luck. You're gonna be the Interpol. Will have to chase us around the world, but I think they have better things to do than chase people shipping. Shipping whatever this is.
In Switzerland, they sued once. I don't remember what it was for a silly thing. I don't remember what it was, but I heard some.
I mean, there are some countries that care about particular products, so they don't want people to sell them randomly. So, but I don't know. I would not know if Swiss is part of it. I love their chocolate to pieces. You guys have awesome chocolate. There's no other way to put it. Possibly the Belgians are giving you some competition, but certainly to me, the Swiss is first.
If the police is pursuing you on a bicycle, you know you screwed up.
Really?
In Basel,
you guys have bike police?
Yeah, in Basel, in Switzerland, they have bike police. That's my uncle told me.
Oh, really? Wow. Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to Switzerland? I'm
Swiss.
I know you're Swiss, but yeah, I know you live in France. I thought, you know, some people. I'm Romanian, but you know, so what?
I'm pretty regular in Switzerland.
Oh, you are? You do?
Yeah.
You go regularly?
The last time I went to Switzerland, I don't remember when it was. It was in beginning of July.
Oh, okay. So who's there? Do you have family left there?
My mother lives in Switzerland.
Oh,
and my My grandmother lives there. My aunt lives there, and some other guys of my family.
Got
I-
it. So you live with your dad and your sister.
My father and my sister lives with me in the moment.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So, wow. And why did you guys choose to go to France? Your father is French?
No, that's a long story.
Oh, okay, okay. Don't worry. I don't mean to pry. Don't worry. Don't feel obligated to explain. Um, but do you like where you are?
That's not bad. We have a lot of freedom even with COVID because I'm not even in the village. We are outside. If I go out the door, we can see the sign that says exit of the town.
Oh my,
So free over here.
nice. Wow. That's that I don't know. We're thinking of France as very idyllic. So like a pretty place sometimes. Oh my God, why so much?
Yeah, where I live, it's really quiet because we have a road maybe 56 meters from here, but we own all the place around, so it's not much of a problem. Our house is pretty far from the road, and so we don't hear the cars. So it's pretty chill over here.
Wow, nice, nice. I mean, it's nice in some area. If you are a person that likes solitude, it's very nice. So Mira, I don't mean to keep you. What are you doing right now? Can you tell us?
She's eating, I think.
She's eating, of course. I would also. uh,
I wanted to see if it was too salty, and it's not, because I got paranoid. So
what were you tasting? What was she tasting?
part of the biscuits, because I was getting paranoid that it was too salty, but it's not.
Oh, okay, good.
The butter isn't salted butter. That's another thing.
All right.
That I got from cooking class here, fresh out of the oven.
Nice.
Another thing I got from cooking class, which is she, my baking teacher, was always like, you cannot use salted butter in a recipe ever. Unsalted butter is an ingredient, and salted butter is a topping. That's what she was always saying. Like if you want to get toast, like you'd spread salted butter on it because it's like a condiment, like a topping. It's not true. Like you can use it. You just have to be aware of the salt in the rest of the recipe. Like if there's also salt in it, which there probably will be because most baking has salt in them. You just have to omit that, and then you can use salted butter. It's not a problem. There's a lot of scare tactics about that, but it's genuinely not that bad. It's not going to kill you. So, yeah.
So we've done it. What's for next? Yeah, you put that in, and what's for the next class, and then we can.
Now, I want to say cookies. Am I right on that, Mom?
Oh, the cornolete?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Which, in a sense, has the same kind of stuff you're doing today with butter in the.
Yeah, so it's a flaky, buttery cookie type thing. It's like a crescent, right?
Oh, yes. So she's
like
making
a nutty crescent.
Walnut, yeah. And that this is another Romanian recipe. Also, it looks like the Mexican, what is it, wedding?
It doesn't look like the Mexican wedding cookie, but it's a similar idea. It's like a buttery, nutty cookie that sort of crumbles. It like falls apart in your mouth. Is that right?
Yes, and you
dust it with powdered sugar.
You put walnut in the middle, or you can put jelly or whatever.
That's slightly different. The Mexican wedding cookie, it's like a thing. It's buttery cookie with like, I'm pretty sure pecans mixed in, and you roll it in powdered sugar, and it like comes apart in your mouth. It's very soft.
Right, but these ones, Mira, you have to make a triangle, and then you roll it like a crescent.
Yeah, it's a crescent.
Yeah.
I understand the idea. I'm just saying the difference. So I have 2 left over, and I'm gonna find somewhere for them, I guess.
You might want to use the blue, the small blue one, and stick it in there.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Yeah.
I use this.
Yeah, better. All right, so pretty much this class is done. If you guys want to talk more or